a few different things here, but like this is gonna be, just candidly speaking, very conversational. So if you have a question, an idea, a comment, a criticism, if you want to throw a rotten tomato at me, I'll like chop it out of the air and we'll serve some daiquiris on the side, we'll figure it out. But like, please, anything that comes to mind, just throw it my way. I have like a very loose agenda of what to share regarding like what's going on here. And also I was informed that I could bring some cool stuff in. So I like scoured through my backyard and I was planning on, I pulled a bunch of stuff aside over the course of the last month. I was supposed to do an Austin Bonsai Society Olea demo last night, but like Blues on the Green happened, so they canceled their meeting and all this. So like I gotta bring an unpilfered load of trees to you guys. Not that you guys were second-class citizens. I had set aside a number of things just for SABS. I was like, this is SABS stuff. This is ABS stuff. They canceled, so I brought it all. So what I will say is like anything over there, if you're interested in it in any regard, there's a number written next to it. We can work on that number. So ideally these things go home with you, and if they don't, we'll probably raffle off the little things. So with all that being said, thank you for being here. Yeah, awesome. So olives. These are a very interesting type of tree that I fell in love with in like the 2020 timeframes. Olives traditionally have a really strong relationship with humanity. And like whenever you want to dive into the relationship between the olive tree and the human species, like Ryan Neal already taps into a whole lot of this content and this idea as he explores the Greek and Roman olives and their relationship with the cultivation of humanity. So like, just classically speaking, olives are just like tied to humans as an existing tree and species of tree that exists. So it's like interesting because when you think about bonsai and like what that means to us as practitioners, like is this a representation of like a wild and native olive? Like, do you feel like this would be something you'd see like in the wild, just like hanging out anywhere? Yes. That's cool. That's cool. Where would you find something like this in the world? In the Mediterranean, yeah. Yeah, these things do not exist like this form in like the States in any form or fashion. So like honestly, in my interpretation of Olea bonsai as a specimen for bonsai, it's pretty like subjective to the artist. And like the thing about olive is that whenever you apply traditional Japanese techniques, AKA as they grow, you cut them and then they grow and you cut them back and you just create like solid, healthy bifurcation, they tend to look really rad. And it's so wild, the fact that like how quickly you can build out a canopy, how you can build out triangles. If you wanted to go with the traditional Japanese approach to interpreting Olea in the form of a bonsai. So this one here, in my opinion, has a little bit more of like a traditional approach. We call this the little hangout. It's got some dead wood that's just like kind of like chilling on the side of the container. And we have like a kind of a tight little triangle that's being composed in this region. So that's kind of like, this one in my opinion is relatively traditional in a Japanese interpretation of like how you'd build out triangles and then work on the deadwood. But as far as tonight goes, we're gonna be looking at how you can take like a raw piece of material and essentially driving it towards having a style and a design for where the trunk is located, and then setting up the primary branches to then build out the canopy for ramification that'll create something along these lines in a 5-year time frame. So that's more or less the scope of what we're going to be doing related to this specimen here. And are there any questions about Olea, how to work with Olea, what Olea are? Sweet. That's a great starting question. Vicky's wondering, where does this come from? I heard the Mediterranean, and we're very far away from that. So then how are we standing in San Antonio with Olea trees that are like doing pretty okay because we're far away from the Mediterranean? So the story behind the genesis of these specific trees, there's someone whose name is Vincent Lee, who maybe you might be familiar with. He did some work with the Austin Bonsai Society in 2020. He's essentially a proclaimed, which means, it's up to you to determine if this is true or not, but he's a self-proclaimed wandering bonsai monk. So this sounds like it's got some really cool mystique to it because Vincent out of California, originally, who I met in Colorado, he was moving from the southern part of California east to where there's mountains to collect trees, and he brought with him about 100 olea of this quality and size. And apparently he was out in the orchards, like the olive orchards of California, and he was more or less like finding kind of dead or beaten down olive trees and then working with the owners to basically acquire them. So he would be digging out very large trunks, like large olive trunks of like very large trees. He'd dig them out and then he'd chainsaw and cut them up into like blocks of dead wood with some degree of compelling natural feature. And this is a future bullet point for dialogue around like what constitutes quality olive deadwood and the whole philosophy around deadwood in itself. So we'll jump into that. But thinking about where these came from, like Vincent's out here collecting giant trunks of olea with like dead, old, decaying branches. He'd chop them up and then take like a chunk and just drop it into a big pot of soil. And then fast forward 15 years and like olives, they have a really amazing propensity to grow from any sort of cutting. So like as long as you have some segment of live vein of an olive, you can like take that and then put it in dirt and it's gonna propagate. So you can like chop this thing up. You could do like a really gnarly cut right through here and like segment this whole section out of it and then put that in a pot and it's good to go. So like the propagation of olives is wild. I think I have a pretty tall one about this big that has made its way away from my garden. But before I let someone else have it, I like chopped off a big chunk along the back, and then I turned that into its own tree in a bonsai pot. So.
Is there a certain time of year would be better to take cuttings?
Good question.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, these guys, like, if we're happy with the genesis story of where they came from and how we can propagate them and what Vincent was doing from Colorado to collect them and make them available to me as I transported them down from Denver, then the best time of year to propagate an olive tree is in the summertime. So they're like a subtropical Mediterranean climate sort of plant. And in the heat of the summer, they'll start pushing out growth that just tremendous amounts of growth. You can see the fresh growth on this. It's roughly this large, and we just kicked into June. So we're more or less into the first month of summer. It's also been kind of a mild summer. So olea as a species, they love the heat, and they love the humidity and some of the hotter temperatures. So you'll take a cutting, and then they'll propagate around the summertime. Another question. Cold hardy. Yeah, very much not so. I would say, no worries on that. From a cold hardy perspective, they can tolerate in the 20s, so they're a little bit more tempered than your boxwood or your buttonwoods rather, or some of your ficus trees. So I've lost olives in sub 20 temperatures, but I've actually had olives hang out in the wintertime in the 25s.
See, there's an olive orchard in the old country.
Yeah.
And they lost everything during the years back, and they lost their entire.
Yeah, the couple year ago freeze was the one I'm describing where it went below 20 for about a week, and that totally wiped out a couple of the large olives that couldn't hang out on the ground. So it was tragic, but yeah, they're relatively hardy. But anytime it gets in the 20s, I bring mine, all of mine, inside just to ensure that nothing dies back.
What about heat?
Oh yeah, on the heat front, good question, Conrad. So what's their heat tolerance? Because when you're looking at the viability of a tree for a specific region, you're looking at the climate. So you're looking at what are the lows and what are the highs from a climactic perspective. So from a heat tolerance perspective, I left these guys out in the summer, like the third or second hottest summer in Austin last year, and they did not skip a beat. They were just chugging. There was no leaf burn. There was no dieback of any nature. It was just straight up like, let's go. So I haven't found the upper threshold for heat, which is pretty impressive being in Austin over the course of the last 4 to 5 years. So what other questions do we have about olives? This is good. We're curious, like, where do they come from? Where do they go? How do you grow them so effectively?
What's the best time to repot them?
Yeah, definitely repotting of the olives is going to be in the summertime, which is what we're doing right now. And I find them to be relatively resilient with the proper aftercare. And what I mean by that is, like, as you'll see tonight, I'll go through the process of working on the dead wood. I'll go through the process of putting some basic wiring on all these branches. And then I'll also go through the process of repotting that. So, like, conceptually, that's a lot of work to be done to a tree. And yet you'll find that they'll be just fine after the case. And it's like, wait a second, you can style, cut back, and repot all in one time frame. And you're like, yes, you can. Again, when you do any sort of work on these guys, as long as there's some sort of living tissue, they're good to go. So if you have roots are like a very strong living tissue because roots are designed to bring water up to the plant itself. There's a chair. Come on in, have a seat, no worries. Or don't, it's totally okay. So,
So did anybody ask about flowering fruiting? It is a fruiting fruit. What do you give it to get the flowering fruit? When do you flower it? When do you fertilize it?
Sure. Yeah, more questions like this. How do you tend to these things? Yeah, no, for sure. I think like from a fertilization perspective, as they're starting to ramp up in the summertime, it's a really solid time to be amping them with fertilizer. So I find them to be just as they grow, like they start pushing out that growth, to be a good time upon which just like add as much fertilizer as possible, and they'll basically just bust. And I've already trimmed back the little example I brought in. So I guess I could have waited. I didn't know. I was kind of trying to keep the messaging real concise, but like this guy had like little bits of seasonal growth all throughout it. And before I brought it in, I just clipped it back. But we're just talking about like a little bit of seasonal growth. There's Osmoco fertilizer already in this container. So it's like just you add some fertilizer, they grow out, you clip it back, and then you keep doing that all summer into the fall until it's like finally done. And you're just basically trying to run out any energy and growth that you need to either build out ramification and bifurcation, or it's kind of wild because like you'll get some like really long growth like this, and like, yeah, you can cut it back and build taper, or, oh, yeah, girl, get it. Or what you can do with the long growth is essentially just like start moving and manipulating it to become like a part of the design. So like in theory, you could like do something like this to create like tanuki with the long growth. So you have options as like, and I was limited on space, but I did bring an Olea into the 2022 San Antonio LSBF convention. And it was like this really rad Olea that was like kind of hanging out like this. It had some good deadwood here and some like lower deadwood here and a nice little triangle. And Jennifer Price was like, you know what'd be cool is like if you tilted it and then you added like some growth here. So what I did was I waited until, and I wish I brought it in so I could give you a visual display instead of this imaginary hand waving thing. But nonetheless, yeah, exactly. So it looked like this, right? And then the tree did this. Yeah, like.
Take a picture of it.
For sure.
Send it to us and we'll put it in our newsletter.
I sure will, because essentially Jennifer Price challenged me to say, hey, this looks cool, but how can we advance the design on it? And she was like, yeah, you have a nice triangle in this region, but wouldn't it be cool if you could like have another sector just like kind of build out here? And I was like, let's see what we can do. So lo and behold, as I was trimming out the seasonal growth, like this one branch just pushed out this way, and I was like, let's try it out. So I wired it in place and I moved it over. I put a guy wire on to pull it down and some wiring to give it some motion, so it's not just like this, like, hey, look, I have this thing out here, right? It's like, give it a little bit of motion. So he did that, and then like after 1 year of doing that work, it's already split into multiple areas, and I'm like, wow, do I let it run for thickness, or do I start building branching by cutting it back and bifurcating it? So to Conrad's request, I'll give you a visual picture reference for what I'm describing, but conceptually, the idea is like as it's pushing out growth through the fertilization throughout the year, you can isolate specific segments or specific branching, and then turn that into like an extended portion of your canopy design.
But your visual would be nice.
Thank you. You're like, the word's cool, let's see it. Proof is in the visuals. So yeah, that's more or less like what's going on here. I just prepared this pot with a very basic 4-point tie down, put some screens in it so that way the soil won't fall through the bases. And question? Fruiting, the fruiting variable. Okay, so Olea, they're a little bit challenging to grow fruit on, mostly because of the fact that if you want fruit to set, they have to be set on like last year's growth, is my comprehension of it. So like as it's pushing out, if you're cutting it back, then you're not giving any old wood for the fruit and flower bodies to set on. So that's kind of why you don't typically see like olives just like hanging out like an apple on an olive bonsai, is because of the desire for ramification and the practice of getting cutbacks on that to get to the desired canopy style. So I have seen fruit on it, but you do have to let them run and like leave them unchecked. I think I've rounded out all the questions. Go for it.
And what is your process of fertilization, and what kind of fertilizer do you like?
Sure, I'll use anything. I'm pretty easy on a fertilizer perspective. My go-tos are like Osmocote, which is like a pretty standard, just like little systemic nodular sort of fertilizer. And I'd recommend like follow the instructions on the bag, but they're mostly like monthly applications. Just add them on there throughout the grow season to just get it to hulk out is kind of my approach towards it. If you're looking to build more refinement instead of development, then probably a little bit more strategic approaches would be beneficial for how you're fertilizing it, which might mean you use like something that's like a little less powerful and then use it like a little less frequently. So depending on what your ultimate aim is, fertilizer is a tool to get you there.
And how powerful is the Osmocote?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to honestly quote you what the numbers are. But yeah, it's a pretty solid go-to. I find it to be something that you can just add without any concern to like root burn or chemical burn, just because of how it's formulated. So it seems to do the trick. But yeah, great question, and more to think about in regards to like how do we fertilize. So my personal experience related to these things involves 2020 kind of showing up with Vince in Colorado, being really captivated by olives, and then starting to slowly, like from a wholesale perspective, bring large quantities of these things down into the Austin area and then growing them from 2020. So I probably have like 30 of this quality, caliber, and size in my backyard. There's some bigger ones and there's like some smaller ones, but they're pretty rad, and it ultimately is like one of my favorite species that are non-Texas natives. So through this process, I've learned a lot. And we'll pull in the previous bullet point of deadwood and deadwood qualities and characteristics. So that's what we're really focusing on tonight, is like Olea as a whole, but very specifically deadwood. So I think, if I remember correctly, you guys have seen Will Baddeley roll through here and talk about deadwood. Like, that dude's a wizard, and I have like the utmost respect for what Will Baddeley does, and what he can do with a power tool is just like incredible. He can replicate the most natural aged look on a tree, and it's just like, wow, how do you do that? You're using power tools, and it's just like, it's phenomenal. But we don't all have that skill set and or that ability to like specialize in learning how to use power tools. So I'm here to share with you the poor man's wisdom related to how to coolly work with deadwood. So one thing that works really well, and I'm going to start with the finishing process. So contrary to where you'd start in most points is like, well, let's start with just cleaving stuff. We're going to work backwards for it. So like from a finishing process, there's this component called lime sulfur. Hopefully, you've heard of lime sulfur before. It's like this kind of red ichor liquor that you paint onto trees. And what it does is it actually bleaches the wood, and then it makes it a little bit more resilient from pests and things. Come on in, ladies, have a seat. Yeah, welcome. Of course. Yeah, come on in. The water's warm. So when you paint, so this tree, the reason why I brought it in is specifically to show you guys a variation of finishes. So we have this sector here, which I have painted with lime sulfur. So you can see how it's like abundantly white and a little bit bleached. I would say this is some like algae or some like mossy sort of green tinge to it, which is kind of wild because I wasn't anticipating that. But like this deadwood here on this specific tree has 4 different approaches towards finishing it. So you have, on this side, you have the lime sulfur, which has been clearly like whitened and bleached. In the middle, you have naturally occurring deadwood. So these fissures, these crevasses, this is natural olea deadwood that's been left untouched. So there's no lime sulfur applied to it, and you can see how it's like browner and darker and it has some shadowing to it. So like if this is the finish you're looking for, leave it natural. It's not gonna harm the tree at all. If you want it to be a little bit more bleached, go for the bleach. So you have lime sulfur on this side, you have naturally occurring deadwood here. On this sector, what I call this is like where you had living tissue that died back. So a different example of living tissue that died back is on this guy. So you can see here, this is essentially old bark that has no longer sustained the life force of the tree. So like if I were to take like just a little scraping tool, you can see this like this bark here, this like, because it's not alive, it's dead, but it still creates like a texture and a pattern to the tree. So you can see as you cleave it off, there's the deadwood underneath it, and that deadwood has this patterning here. So you don't see as much of the fissuring and the barking and like, or not the barkiness, but like this fissuring and craggly like essence that's going on. It's a little bit more smoother, and you kind of see more of this like natural grain of the wood. So again, when you're thinking about finishing the deadwood, you're thinking through like what visual elements do you want to convey with the wood, because you can bleach it out and make it really white in contrast to the green canopy. You can use the natural deadwood coloring. You can use the old bark and the old live vein to showcase some of this lesser fissure, some of the striations in the deadwood. Or you can be totally wild and you can just get out a torch and just blast it with fire, like you can see here on this section. So we did some rough and rudimentary carving work with some power tools, and you could see very obviously where the tool marks were. So one way that you can hide the tool marks from a carving job is just to get a blowtorch and just go and just like torch it exactly until you get this like nice char. And then what happens is the char, as you guys know, it embers up. And whenever it gets nice and craggly and it feels like alligator like skin where it's all just like craggly and you get these fissures in it. So that's what you're going for with the char, is just to burn out all those tool marks and be like, let's go. Supposedly, and we're testing it here, supposedly over a long enough period of time, the nature will take the char off and leave the alligator underneath. But we'll see. I'm not convinced, and I'm also a young man, so we'll have plenty of time to find out. But, but honestly, you can start seeing where some of these char marks, because this section was just like completely obliterated, like someone just like, someone being me, just like burnt it. What's up?
How long ago did you do this?
This was work of 2020. This char work was 2020.
Give a lot more sunlight, direct sunlight to help too.
Absolutely. Direct sunlight, lots of water will help just kind of peel it off. Also, yes, if you wanted to be like super, like, I can't wait, I'm not a young man, then you can get out like a wire brush and you can like, brush off all the char and see how it goes. And then, like just let nature and time do its course. It's all good. But absolutely. So those at a high level, those are the 4 methods I've figured out for like finishing your dead wood. Questions, comments, thoughts, or tomatoes? Yeah.
So, not having a 150-year-old tree to start with, I got some.
For sure, though.
That's kind of like, maybe 3-4 inch
Mhm.
trunk, a couple of lower branches that are fairly thick. How does it take reduction? Like, can it take a really hard reduction?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like, because to your point, this tree from an old orchard tree was already like 150 years old, right? So whenever it was carved up, blocked up, put into a pot, and then 15 years of bonsai practice to it, it's like, 160-year-old specimen, so to speak, from a material perspective. It might be a 15 to 20-year-old bonsai, but it's definitely like a 100-plus-year-old tree in itself. So question at hand is like, hey, I have just this. This is my tree. Like just everything above my hands is my tree. What do I do and how do I handle deadwood? And then how does it handle cutbacks, right? Yeah. So thank you for segmenting away from the deadwood conversation and into like, how do I develop my tree? And we'll start working on this one to like kind of showcase that example. So conceptually, as you're going from like development into refinement, the thickness of the branching and the trunk is going to be determined through the length of it, right? So what I've learned is like this is a very thick apex and lead branch or trunk of this tree. Like this thing died back clearly because all of the growth is emanating just from below my hands, right? So like where the origin of all of this growth is below my fingers, right? Versus on this one, where I can point you directly to where this branch is emerging from the trunk. So in here, there is some portion of live vein that's starting from these root systems and like working its way up through here, and then working its way through some of this dead undercarriage, and then up through here to build out this. So that's a variable related to like quality of like a really high caliber olea versus like something that's in development or younger. And to your question around like, what do you do for development perspective is depending on what you're aiming for from your end goal perspective, like if you're happy with the width and caliper of this here trunk, then you start chopping it in order to develop branching and ramification. But if you wanted this to be twice as large, you would just literally just keep letting it go and run and run and run until you get to the thickness that you're looking at for your design that you have in mind. And once you have that, start chopping it. So that's kind of the approach and like how you'd handle development to refinement.
So say you have a 2-inch branch,
Mm-hmm.
something that starts maybe 3 inches, a couple of inches. You hack this thing all the way back to like thing that long, 2 inches fat. How does it grow back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this stuff, olea in general is like what I would consider to be a strong basal. What's up, John? It's good to see you. Hello. So oleas are a strong basal growing plant, which means they have a strong tendency to grow shoots out of the base. So even like something that's like this, that's been highly refined, like I had to come through and clip stuff that was growing right out of the soil line because it's just like, hey, I'm gonna go with the path of least resistance and I'm gonna start from the base. So honestly, there's 2 different approaches that we can use for developing this tree. There's the fast approach, which would be kind of similar to like a tanuki concept, to where you're actually moving the branching around the tree to make it feel like they're interwoven and interconnected when they're not actually emanating from these apex points. Or you can do like a cut and grow perspective where you're basically developing taper. So you could like cut all these back to the lowest branching possible and like let the next bifurcation set up and then like slowly build out your branching. if we're gonna set this one up to have some like quote unquote tanuki-like characteristics, but it's definitely, to your question, if we're like pushing this branch really close to this deadwood, it's not going to fuse back together, right? It's not going to fuse back. At the very best, if you bind it close enough, as the live vein expands, it's going to expand and then conform to like adhere to the trunk at best. Yeah, but it's definitely not going to like fuse back.
It would probably swell into it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it'll swell into it, aka conforming.
Everybody what a tanuki/Phoenix graft is. I'm sure half the people don't know.
Sure, of course. So as I'm describing a Phoenix graft, I'm going to clean up some of this dead vein here and try to make as much of a mess for the SABS board as possible, so that way you guys invite me back for next year. But what I'm going to do is clean up some of this dead wood and get ready to basically start wiring out these branches, so that way I don't run into like a pinch of work on the last minute. So a Phoenix graft is what is commonly known in the juniper world as when you have like a dead trunk, and what you want to do is basically take a living juniper whip and like carve out a section for that juniper whip to follow up, and then you bind the juniper whip to the dead wood, so as the juniper whip grows and expands, it'll grow into the wood and appear like it's a live vein of a very old piece of wood. So in theory, you're trying to take old piece of wood, young tree, and then combine them for the optical illusion of age in order to fast forward through that very time constraintive process of growing a quality juniper. So that's what a Phoenix graft is. And so this is all, I mean, like you could use this cosmetically, but in my opinion, we want to remove this like type of bark from the dead wood. And then as I'm doing this, I'm thinking through a few different ideas. But what other questions do we have? Anyone?
Are you going to use the branches that are coming from below the soil surface?
I'm going to basically use all of these. We'll do some elimination to wherever there's multiples emanating from the same location. We'll do some elimination to simplify it. But then, yeah, I'm going to basically wire all these out to where they have some degree of interplay with this. And then honestly, as I was listening to the introductions and thinking about what I wanted to do, I was kind of feeling like, instead of just like a highly vertical tree, I was kind of feeling like maybe tipping it sideways some to give like some sideways like tilt to give the actual like deadwood base like a slant, and then potentially like building out some branching trunk lines and primary branches off of a slant design. And then looking to throw that in this pot to where maybe base is here, slanting this way with some movement. So if you can imagine my hands moving really fast and looking like beautiful trees, that's what we're going for here.
Talk about the roots a little bit on the,
Sure.
do they want to be, do they have like a taproot? Is it more spread out? And how delicate are they? Are they like the bougainvilleas that are very temperamental, or can you work with them some?
Yeah, the roots on these guys, they're pretty, like, I would give them like, how do you describe? They're pretty lanky. They're fibrous. They're not really fine. I'd say they're pretty ropey, actually, is going to be the word I would use. So you'll get a chance to see them. So good question on like, what do the roots look like? They fan out pretty extensively. There's not much of a taproot as one might anticipate with like larger trees. And then I kind of find the amount of root mass that you have to honestly be relatively erroneous to the success of the repotting. Naturally, if you have more roots, they're going to be great. But again, I feel very confident that I can like just cut out this block of live vein and take that block of live vein and like throw it into a pot, and it's going to grow roots and be like, sweet, we did it. So if you were to like flat cut this thing right at the base and all of those ropey roots just get tossed to the side, I think it's just going to bounce back and be like, cool, thanks. So no real concerns there. By the way, this is a jewel of opar. If anyone's familiar with the jewels of opar, these are highly invasive little plants. They make tuber roots. They grow really long, and they have like pink little ball flowers. Yeah, exactly. She gets them. And those pink little ball flowers, they turn into seeds, and they go in all of your plants. And then there's more of these things in everywhere. So if anyone's a jewel of opar, here's a happy jewel of opar. I'll just kindly set that over there if anyone wants it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. All over. If you want to have some fun, grab that thing up. Jewel of opar. I incorrectly called them the wrong name for a long time, and then I learned they're jewels of opar. So here we are teaching it proper style.
Somebody said they were an herb in the herb family.
They are, yeah. There's like medicinal purposes for the jewel of opar.
I just know what happens.
Yeah, you feel like you're flying. It's super cool. Just kidding, guys. I don't know. I don't know about that. Okay, so I made a tragic misstep, and I want to share this misstep with you guys because it's shared out of camaraderie and like confidence. Confidence, not confidence. Yeah, not like, hey, I'm proud of this misstep. More like, hey guys, I made a mistake and I'm sorry. So like, I was supposed to do the Austin Bonsai Society last night, and they canceled on me. And I had to like pick out, and they were like, olives, Brandon, let's do olives. And I'm like, okay, guys, I don't have a million olives for everyone to just like do olives on. So they wanted olives. You guys wanted olives. Everyone wants olives. It's what's up. Olives are great. So I like looked through my backyard to find out some material that could be used for a demo. I had this like cool thing that like died back in 2020 during a big freeze. I put it in the ground. It was doing really well in the ground. It died back in like 2022, and then it like, because of the cold, and then it came back again. And like, just candidly speaking, there was another piece here, and you can, like, if you're savvy and have the perception of eyes, you can see that in this region, there's some freshly damaged wood, and you might be like, hey, guy, like, that's part of the demo. Why didn't you bring the whole thing in? And just like, yeah, I know, right? Why am I telling the story? But like all on the table, right? I just like, I was trying to split the difference, and like I had a tree for you guys, and like I like did some initial cleaving where I took the thing and I was like, let's break it in half. And the other half was going to be the Austin Bonsai Society demo tree. And I was like, sweet. I took one big tree. I wanted to make it into two smaller trees. I wanted to do that like live because it's a really magical process to me to like split this, like, because it had this other section here. So to like split it and then to make two trees out of one is kind of like a pretty important thing. So I had that all queued up. But I went ahead and split them offline, like not live, because I was not confident with how the results would go, and I didn't know what it would look like. And also I needed two trees, so I'm like, how do I do this? Do I take the big tree to Austin, split it there, and then be like, okay, this piece is going to SABS tomorrow, we'll leave it aside, and then be like, hey SABS, what's up? It's me. I felt like that would be a disservice to you guys. It's in the van, man. I got you. No, it's at the house. It's at the house. So I split the tree up, and I'm like, cool, I got two trees for two demo clubs. And then Roland was like, yo, Brandon, I got some olives that you left in my house years ago. And I was like, oh, Roland, you have olive trees. Oops. So I had a different tree for Austin Bonsai Society, and I didn't have to split it. So with all that being said, thank you, David. We'll just go with this. With all that being said, there is a second half to this one, and it's at the house, and it looks pretty cool. But Gabe looked at this and he was like, let's take the taller one. So if you don't like the taller one, you can talk to that guy back there with the camera and let him know.
Your advice, bro? No, this is a good one. This is a good one. Yeah,
and this is definitely a good choice. So this is where it's at. I cleared off a lot of the deadwood bark. So like I feel comfortable with that. If we had more time, someone could get in there with like these little hooks or like little scraper tools and like even do more detail to clean it up, right? Like it's only gonna make it even better. So that's for whoever gets it to do more work, but I wanted to showcase like kind of the process of using these scrapers and identifying like some of this like deadwood work to clean it up and expose what's underneath it, right? So like if we're spending a lot of diligent time on that, come back through with the wire brush, right? And just like keep cleaning it to where you're removing any of that excessive dirt or kind of deadwood. Yeah?
30-minute mark.
Wow, awesome. So here we are, fast forwarding into the next portions of this. We'll put the anecdotes aside. I had some fun gags I was gonna pull out, but we'll just go right into the carving portion. So I started working with carving using all of the electronic drill bits, and they're really cool, like the flying saucers. This stuff is great, also kind of challenging. And then I started using some like really basic chisels. I was like, this is cool, this is gonna get me what I need. Rubber hammers, chisels, you know, kind of using some of this stuff. It's like, it's not working very well. So, you know, this is like first amateur try at this sort of sport. So we'll just fast forward through the gags and the bits of like, this isn't how it goes. And instead use like a mallet made out of wood and use some actual wood carving chisels, and then you can get some serious work done in regards to like how you can make a dent on this. So just as an example, like we'll just like kind of add some more crevasse up in here.
How do you say super hammer, martillo, marauder?
So I find these chisels to be really effective because anytime you do any removal of wood, you're basically creating natural, organic fissures, right? So like on this section here, where you know it was like pretty straightforward, now we've created a little bit more opening in that. And using this hammer and chisel, you don't really notice it in the slightest. So I find like branch or like deadwood removal with the chisel is just like really where it's at. So I'll do a little bit of chisel work on this just to kind of remove some areas, clean some points up. And then the wood when it's freshly exposed is like this, like honestly it smells really good. Yeah, so this like olive wood has like a really good smell to it, but it's gonna have this like lighter brown color to it. And then as it ages out, it's gonna start turning more gray. So you don't have to really worry about it too much in regards for like, how do you finish it? I described all the finishing approaches, and you can do all of those things, or you can just let time be the master and just like take it all and let it gray out. So it'll naturally turn gray and blend in with the existing natural deadwood on its own accord. So you don't even really have to be too concerned about it.
Have you tried using a pressure washer on it?
For sure. I haven't personally used high power pressure washers. I have used the sand blasting method for finalization, and it works really good. Like if you have a tool mark in the deadwood, you can use a little sand blaster and just like sand it down, and it like smooths all those tool marks out to make it really nice and smooth. So I would say definitely on that. So we're just cleaning up like wherever the deadwood was kind of blocky or chunky, we're gonna look to just kind of do some elimination here.
Make it more organic, is that what-
We're basically just removing large bulks of wood just to kind of add more interest and appeal where it might be like a pretty straight line is what we're aiming at with this sort of approach. And you could spend hours on this, honestly. Like this is a dead branch right here. So like I just split the dead branch open a little bit. Like, so I just like split it open to where it was like tubular and now it has like a flare on it. So just like adding little embellishments, the whole thing's gone. It's hard to say, you kind of just roll with how it goes.
So when you carve like that, do you sometimes pencil it out or use a marker to kind of, I want to remove this, I want to remove that type thing?
Absolutely, definitely. Like I would use like a piece of chalk. Again, I'm like feeling constrained on the times to get into like the details of like carving an approach of this, but definitely like if you felt like there was some section here that you wanted to remove, you could like chalk it out and then take some time to like very intentionally like remove it, and then the chalked out piece would just like bounce out and then be removed. So chalk is a good way to kind of like indicate where you want things to get removed.
I'm gonna pass it around, a couple pieces you can smell. Actually, it has a hint of like an olive oil smell to it. Yeah, I'll get them. Right in front of you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.
Extra virgin olive oil.
So I would love to spend another like 15 to 20 minutes doing exactly what I'm doing. And with the time constraint here, we're going to move into the next section, which would be the wiring and the repotting. So we'll see what I can get done. If I can get a 10-minute, I think if I get 10 minutes done, I can put it in here in 10 minutes or less. So, yeah, she's like, I doubt it.
All right, so while he's doing that, just a special thank you to Erwin, Veronica for the food from today. Thank you guys. Also, we want to thank Sushi Zushi at the Lincoln Heights location. They are working with us right now, and hopefully there will be a year-long sponsor where they'll provide discounts for us as well. So we're kind of working with them on that, and hopefully that'll happen within the next couple of days. You'll hear about it in the newsletter once it happens. Okay? A very special thank you to Brandon, who came out from Austin. Guys, if you get a chance, if you get a chance, if you're interested, he's up in Austin. He's got a lot of beautiful trees and whatnot. I know Veronica's already telling me we're going to make a trip out there. So definitely, I'm sure he would love to have us out there. Just make arrangements with him because he's very busy.
I have a full-time job and 4 children to qualify the very busy aspect of life. So, yeah. For sure. They're adorable though, so.
That's free labor. What are you talking about?
Well worth it. I mean, that's the plan.
Yes.
So as I'm looking to like speed style out this this olive tree, no worries, we can hang out. We can be quiet. It's cool.
Should we pass those out?
Anyone's welcome to those. They're basically just like fodder for.
They'll grow, right?
Yeah, they will grow for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, if you want to measure out a wire for this next piece here, you can do that. Yeah, just snag that spool of wire behind me, and then we'll expand it out to the height of the, like, 2 branches, and we'll slap it on there, and then we'll wire them in place.
I don't think you paid me for that bonus yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there something I can help with, or you got Ricky helping you?
Ricky just volunteered to jump in, so
That's fine. I know. Go for it.
yeah, you got it, man. Just
Probably here in about 10 minutes.
So we're gonna try and repot it still, or
oh, absolutely.
you want to put some soil in it, get it ready?
Yeah, the white bucket has soil in it.
I'll put it.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
You want to tell me which ones you want wired to which, or it doesn't really?
Yeah, so let's do like these 2 here. So I'll anchor them for you, and then you can wire them out. So
Which way to go?
yeah.
Is this a turf?
It is.
What is that, turf is in there?
All right, so if you want to wire that one out on that branch, that's sweet.
I have to tell you, I grow an olive tree,
Yeah.
and a friend of mine came from Florida and took a bunch of the olives
Okay.
and grew them. He has 4 trees in Florida growing from my olives that were on there. The olives are just nesting.
Just from seed?
Yeah, well, an actual olive.
Yeah, from an.
Because they got to soak them in brine.
I'm sorry. And I lived in Mexico, and they have driftwood that comes up.
Right.
And the man that grows the Viva orchids, he has a huge farm. And we asked him because they said the orchids in the driftwood, and it's really magnificent.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And we asked him one time, how did he get the driftwood? And he said, you know, the maid throws
My favorite carving tool.
every week.
Double
They're
sided
still
hook
trying to
knife.
record. You guys get back to it.
Because he still said, my maid puts fabuloso.
Turn it 180 and we'll just. Yeah, do that. Just gotta get that extra wire.
Put that right in there.
Thank you, sir.
This is right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So leopard plant. Yes, sir. He knows what's up. He's like $5 on a leopard plant. Which one do you want to do? I think we got it here.
Yeah, this guy, or are you just gonna rock it out?
We'll just like do this.
Hey, that works too.
Awesome. Can you hand me the lid to that thing? Yes, that's brilliant. That's exactly what I need there. Thank you kindly. You ready? Ricky.
Kind of reminds me of boxing group.
You do know that you make a mess, you have to clean it up.
No problem. I'd love to. I'd love to. I was hoping the board would take care of it. So you guys are asking about the roots.
Everybody quiet.
Attention, attention. We were curious about the roots. Here we have some ropey sort of roots related to this olive tree. To your surprise, it's like kind of wild, right? But as we're looking at this, like you can see, this is like the core of the tree from the orchard, like this big chunky section, and this is probably like a branch out here. So like when we're looking at this is actually gonna like kind of work exactly what I was looking at, right? It's kind of like, hey, what's up? I mean, we could try to pitch it this way, but this feels a little bit ostentatious, right? But like if we're looking at it, we could we could kind of just set it in here like this. It just feels a little bit forced. I'll say that. So I'll go with the like the. Yeah, would you mind giving that a handheld there? And thank you, sir. So I hear there's raffles going on here. Are we doing raffles?
Make sure you get your raffle tickets if you want to win this.
Or just don't, because it's mine.
It's also Vicky's birthday, so if you want to throw 5 on Vicky's birthday, we're here for it.
You only got one chopstick?
I got a big chopstick.
Already, like while I was talking over.
Yeah, I wired it out. I didn't set the branches at all. I just wired it, you know.
Still recording? Don, he's still recording. Still recording?
Way to get back.
Double fist, 2 cups, let's go.
I'll wire it when I take it home tonight.
I hope you win it. I hope I win it. I got I did.
You're gonna come down to business. Brandon, did you say you hope I win it?
I hope Conrad.
You know where you're going?
No, I got 2 tickets for Vicky since it's her birthday. It's 3, yeah.
So, were you gonna wrap it around?
That's the last step. That's the coup de grace of this experience, is that idea there. You know it. So we'll do a little tie down here like this. Okay. Oh, okay. It happens fast. Oh man, you're breaking my back there. You got any cool shohin? You got any tiny olives? I do have tiny olives, and they're super dope, man. They're super dope. They're super cool, man.
So insect problems still has
No insect problems. I haven't seen.
insect problems.
I haven't seen any concerns with insects. Hello.
Doesn't it? It's beautiful.
Thank you. We're not quite done yet, but it's. You guys were super skeptical until the last minute, right? You're like, oh, it's out of the pot. It looks good now.
Nobody was skeptical.
I was.
We brought you for a reason.
Thank you. I appreciate the trust. I got you guys.
Oh yeah.
The container is a donation from Hawkeye Bonsai, not from me, but it's a write-off for the company. So happy to support you guys.
What is in your mix with soil?
This is the San Antonio Bonsai Society mix.
Crappy mix. We should have used your.
I know, man. I brought a whole bucket. It's right there. It's orange.
Well, I'll repot it when I get
It's all good. It's all, yeah, please do. It can handle it.
I know. Want more? I'll bring it out.
Yeah, a little bit more. Too expensive.
And this is the basic soil we have in ACL. So we have 2.
So you bring
This is shale turfus, pumice, and lime salt, pine bark.
Perlite.
It's not even pumice, yeah.
Do you like this mix more than the other?
It is perlite.
Yeah, it is.
Someone told him he and he got
I like it. No, it's a good,
perlite.
it's a good general.
Oh, you're recording.
And that's David's opinion.
No, it's approved. Can you hear us?
Did you pay me for that pumice yet?
No.
Right? No, I still owe you money, David.
Yeah, he does. Lots and lots.
So apparently SA's got their own pumice already.
Yeah?
They got a bunch of it. We should use
I did bring the SABS soil scoop. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Yeah. You know, just in case.
David's idea, if I remember right.
Here, here.
Those are from Chili's.
It's been very functional.
I put the goodie bag at a high level. Everybody's got a big step to go over.
Oh, did you? That's what it was.
It calls me a bonsai tree.
It was not your idea.
Oh my goodness.
His idea. He worked there.
Excuse me, I went and got the damn thing.
Well, somebody's idea.
You don't see two redheads go at it?
Hey! Ah, da, 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 da. Oh yeah, huh? Yeah, come on, let's go.
Keep the camera rolling. It is. He's gonna have to bleep some of the stuff out.
Oh, no. We're not leaving anything.
Here, pull my finger.
Please, 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 please.
You need a second piece of wire. I think there's one already cut.
Keep it rolling, Gabriel.
Is that big enough?
Should be. Did you hold that there for just a moment? Yep, just like that. Cool. Thank you.
You got plenty of soil?
I do believe so. You hold that there, please.
Grapes and olives, one of the oldest fruits.
Olives are good with it.
I don't like that one.
Yeah, I had some beef with it, man. It wasn't sitting with me. I think so. Yeah, they're super flexible. So something along these lines is more or less kind of what I would go for.
Crickets up here.
Come on, Jake.
Here we go.
Kind of just. Thank you.
They gotta take it from that bag that Jay has.
Of course.
Get that one that's stuck to the side, that's mine.
Okay, I'll pick out the one that says.
Folks, once again, a very special thank you to Brandon for coming out, putting this beautiful thing